Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Anime Octopus. Today, we're diving into our fanfic series with What If Naruko Was a Geek Demigod? Part 3. Get ready for some twists, laughs, and a fresh take on your favorite characters. Disclaimer, the content on this channel is purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos, all rights belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's jump right in. Silence stretched across the forest clearing. Everyone could hardly believe what they had just heard. A goddess of the moon, Artemis, had a child? With a mortal? The resemblance was undeniable. Annabeth's eyes widened in astonishment. It was one thing to learn she didn't share the same mother as her sister, but it was another entirely to discover that her sister's mother was Artemis, the mysterious and powerful goddess who led a group of fearless young hunters, much like the legendary Peter Pan and her lost boys. It was strange, awe-inspiring, and, honestly, a little overwhelming. Somewhere deep inside, Annabeth couldn't help feeling a pang of envy. She loved her father dearly, but part of her longed to know her own mother. Naruko, arms crossed and smirking, watched the stunned expressions with amusement. Artemis mirrored her, though her expression leaned more toward quiet amusement than outright mischief. "I think we just blew their minds," Naruko said. Artemis rolled her eyes, though a small smile tugged at her lips. "I can't believe you said it out loud. My hunters are going to be furious. At the very least, they'll give you a very stern talking to." Naruko chuckled. "Even if they do, it'll be fun. But wait, does that make me their stepmom?" Artemis paused thoughtfully. In a way, yes. She had welcomed the children into her care, so by today's standards, Naruko technically was their stepmother. "I suppose so," Artemis murmured. The revelation slowly sank in for everyone, including Tsuki. She blinked, uncertain what to do. Her mother stood there, right in front of her. Should she run up and hug her, like in the movies? Or should she stay close to her dad and wait? She was only 7. This was confusing. She decided to wait, trusting her father to handle things. The hunters' cries of protest echoed across the clearing. Artemis understood, it was a complicated situation, after all. But she looked to Naruko, and Naruko gave a small, reassuring nod. Artemis smiled, grateful for the silent support. Naruko knew how to handle tricky situations. Sure, she could deal with 1 or 2 hunters, but a whole platoon of devoted young girls? That would be tricky. But Naruko was confident in her own charm and cleverness. "Alright, one at a time now," Artemis instructed. "Zoe, you summarize your questions." Zoe took a deep breath, trying to calm herself and the other hunters. "Lady Artemis, is that child really your daughter? If so, when was she born? What's her name? How old is she? Who's her father? And, can I hug her?" She rattled off in a rush. Artemis smiled softly. "Yes, she is my daughter. She was born 7 years ago. Her name is Tsuki. No hugs yet, you get your turn later. And her father is right here." She gestured toward Naruko. Ignoring the sharp glares from the hunters, Naruko gave a warm smile and a wave. She knew the girls could be formidable, but they were also incredibly cute when they were curious. "Who are you?" one hunter asked, crossing her arms. Naruko's grin widened. "Glad you asked." She struck a dramatic pose, and suddenly the forest darkened. Shadows swirled, and then, just as suddenly, light returned with a burst of cherry blossoms falling gently around her. "I am the fastest, bravest, and most determined ninja of the land. Student of the One-Eyed Thunder Master, apprentice to the Great Toad Sage, and friend to gods and mortals alike. I am the valiant, Naruko Uzumaki," she declared proudly. Tsuki clapped her hands in delight. "Go, Dad, Mom. Go." Annabeth buried her face in her hands, embarrassed yet secretly proud of her mother's boldness. Artemis shook her head, smiling. Even for a goddess, Naruko's antics were remarkable. The hunters, despite their frustration, were beginning to appreciate Naruko's cleverness. An arrow suddenly shot toward her, aiming for her face, but Naruko twisted in mid-air, catching it effortlessly with a playful grin. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," Annabeth muttered. Naruko winked at Tsuki. "Alright, everyone, before we get carried away with arrows and yelling, let's let Tsuki and her mother talk for a bit. It's important, after all." The hunters hesitated, realizing that denying a child a moment with her mother would be cruel. With a collective nod, they stepped back, letting Tsuki run forward to embrace Artemis. Naruko, watching the reunion, grinned. "And while you're at it, how about a little game? Let's see if you can catch me first. Suki squealed with delight. The forest erupted in laughter and excitement as the family came together, finding joy, love, and fun in the most unexpected way. Even the hunters, fierce and devoted as they were, couldn't help but smile. After all, everyone deserves a moment of happiness, even gods and ninjas alike. All right, Naruko said, pulling a scroll from her belt. She unrolled it carefully, revealing 7 mysterious seals, each decorated with intricate symbols. Everyone stared in curiosity, their eyes wide with wonder. Naruko picked one, and with a quiet pop, a long, thin needle-like sword appeared, its edge glinting faintly, with a ribbon-like string trailing from its hilt. Everyone, meet Nuabari, also called sewing needle, she said with a bright grin. I could have picked a sword that makes huge explosions when I swing it, but I don't want to hurt anyone. This one seems harmless. But it's clever, just like me. Her grin made the group groan, partly in exasperation and partly in amusement. Suki, have a nice long chat with Mom, she continued, and Annabeth, she's technically your stepmom, so be kind. Luke, try not to upset anyone, and Talia, watch over them. She gestured to the rest of the group with a playful wave. Then she turned back to the others, adopting her most serious face. Now, I may look ordinary, but I'm not. I want to see how well you all work together. You're stronger than the rest, so I'll be a little tougher. Like my teacher once told me, come at me with everything you've got, that's the only way you'll even touch me. The group readied themselves, and Naruko's body flickered, like sunlight shimmering on water. Slowly, she vanished, leaving only a whisper of her voice. Oi! The group spun around. At the edge of the forest, Naruko reappeared, Nuabari resting on her shoulder. Let's see how you handle someone faster than you, she called, stepping confidently into the forest. She had a reason beyond fun. Naruko wanted to understand the semi-immortals in this world, they were almost godlike in power. Testing them gently would show her how far they had come without any danger. Come back here, you trickster, someone shouted from behind. Perfect timing. Naruko spun around, laughing softly. Did you say something? The air shimmered again, and she flicked a playful glance back at them. Maybe she should wear a mask too. Double masks were always good for dramatic effect. Dash. Artemis's tent. Artemis shook her head, watching the scene unfold. Why did Naruko have to be so dramatic? But at least she was keeping the kids entertained. She used the word entertained loosely. Turning, Artemis froze. Before her stood a tiny version of herself, hesitant and wide-eyed. It was awkward, so awkward she couldn't find words. A soft voice spoke. Athena's daughter, another small blonde child, stepped forward. Maybe we should talk somewhere more private. Not right here in the forest. Artemis nodded, seeing her own stubbornness in the child's expression, along with a hint of Naruko's boldness. She smiled faintly. Camp isn't far. Let's go there. Extending her hand, she waited. Suki looked nervous, scrunching her tiny face as she considered the gesture. Finally, she reached out. Her hand was warm. Artemis remembered holding Tsuki when she was a newborn, the tiny fingers, the fragile body, the sound of her first cry. She had feared letting go, worried about the dangers that could come, worried about breaking sacred promises. But looking at Tsuki now, swinging her arms happily as they walked, Artemis felt certainty for the first time. She would never regret being her mother. Dash. In the forest. Naruko chuckled as she watched the girls move with skill and precision. They weren't bad at all, far from it. She admired their teamwork, their clever ideas, and their courage. But she could see they weren't quite ready for her full ninja techniques yet. Still, she had a plan. Today, they'd learn humility in the gentlest way, through playful challenge, not danger. Kirigakure no Jutsu. She called, and a soft cloud of mist swirled around her. The girls jumped back, startled but smiling. Even without real danger, Naruko's presence was thrilling. Dash. Back at the tent. Artemis watched as Tsuki finally asked the question Artemis had feared most. How did you and Dad meet? Her heart tightened. She had expected hesitation, anger, or sorrow, but curiosity and wonder? That stung in a bittersweet way. Tsuki didn't care about past decisions or broken promises, she wanted a story about her family. Artemis knelt down, meeting her daughter's eyes. It was a long time ago, she began gently. And it was full of adventures. Maybe one day, you'll hear it all. Tsuki beamed, entirely focused on the story, and Artemis realized something important. Sometimes the hardest questions bring the most beautiful beginnings. Suki, however, was still puzzling over her father's mysterious past. How in the world had he met Naruko, a heroine with a sparkling spirit, a whirlwind of energy, and a promise to always be true to herself? Her father was remarkable in his own way, but a whirlwind heroine? That seemed almost impossible. Surely there was a story there. She needed to know it. It wasn't that she didn't like her newly revealed mother, far from it. Suki wanted to rush forward, hug her tight, and never let go. But curiosity tugged at her, along with a whisper of protectiveness. How could Naruko just leave her father alone like that? Suki almost shouted it out loud, but Annabeth kept nudging her ribs whenever she got too carried away. Annabeth. Thank goodness for clever siblings. Annoying sometimes, yes, but lifesavers always. Finally, Artemis spoke. Her voice was gentle, but held the weight of memories. When I first met your father, she began, he was wandering the forest, probably camping somewhere in the middle of nowhere. She smiled faintly, remembering that first, awkward encounter. When I appeared, he had a bow in hand, aiming as if I were some sort of magical creature. We had quite the misunderstanding. Suki and her friends leaned forward, eager for the details. And then? Suki asked, eyes wide. We argued, Artemis said with a soft laugh. Argued? Annabeth echoed. Her father arguing with someone? That seemed strange. He was usually calm, helpful, and practical. Artemis arched an eyebrow. Does he act differently now? Well, how was he before? Luke piped in, earning a tiny glare from the goddess. Artemis thought a moment, then shrugged. He was a bit of an idiot. The children blinked in surprise. When I said we argued, it began because I may have teased his name. You know it means both maelstrom and fish cake, right? Zeus's daughter snorted. I am so going to tease him about that later. Artemis chuckled, shaking her head. Even after that, he didn't realize I was a goddess. He teased me for having a fancy name that sounded too heroic. Honestly, I couldn't stop thinking about him after that. Suki and Annabeth exchanged amused glances. They were thinking the same thing. Somehow, that silliness had sparked something magical. For about a week, we challenged each other in the forest, a contest of skill and wit. Eventually, we decided to return to our lives, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. Artemis's voice softened. I was searching for the perfect wood to craft a new bow. When I found it, he happened to be camped at the base of the tree. She held up a bow that glimmered in the sunlight. Every time she used it, it reminded her of Naruko, bright, bold, and full of heart. The bow was special, like a friend who always guided her, just like her father had guided Naruko too. Suki tilted her head, intrigued. So that's how it started? Artemis smiled, slightly embarrassed. Yes. Life got complicated, but that first spark was magical. And now, here we are. Annabeth leaned forward. So, where does this leave my sister? Artemis smiled knowingly. Leave it to Athena's child to ask the important questions first. In the forest, Naruko was laughing as she darted between the trees. The mist swirled around her, playful and mysterious, and she moved like the wind itself. Are you ready to be caught? She called, her voice full of laughter. The other children tried to hide behind trees, but Naruko's clever eyes found them. She never hurt anyone, her fun was in the chase, in the challenge, in the joy of playing together. You'll never catch me, called Zoe, trying to stay hidden. Naruko giggled. Oh, I'm not catching you to win, I'm catching you to play. Come on, don't stop moving. With a flip and a bound, she zipped past a tree and set up a harmless trap of twirling ribbons. It was all part of the game, a magical test of wits and courage. Thou art clever, Naruko said, bowing dramatically, making everyone laugh. You are infuriating, someone shouted, but with a smile. Of course, Naruko said, winking. That's what makes life fun. The children dashed and dodged, the forest echoing with laughter, ribbons fluttering in the mist. Naruko moved like a whirlwind of joy, a spark of friendship and courage in every step. And even in the quiet moments, her heart reminded everyone that the greatest adventure of all was simply being together. Artemis's tent. I'm offering a place among the hunters, Artemis said firmly, her gaze steady. No, thanks, Suki replied without hesitation. Artemis raised an eyebrow. I wasn't expecting you to decide so quickly. Suki shrugged. I don't really want to leave Dad. He promised to train me so I won't be defenseless. But just for curiosity, what's so special about being a hunter? For one, immortality, Artemis said matter-of-factly. Suki snorted. Who wants to live forever? Sure, it sounds exciting for a while, but eventually, it just gets lonely. I wouldn't want to see Dad grow old without me around. He's the kind of person who can do anything. Everyone in the group nodded. Naruko, Suki's father, did seem like that type of person, clever, daring, and unstoppable. And there has to be a catch, right? Immortality isn't something you get for fun. You're right, Artemis admitted. Hunters must remain maidens. Maiden? No boys, Artemis explained. Suki shook her head. Nah, that's silly. Do I have to hate them too? Artemis nodded slightly, though she didn't push the idea. Not exactly hate, but keep to yourself. Half the people in the world are boys. I'm not going to spend my life hating half the world, Suki said firmly. I see, Artemis said, sighing softly. While it stung that her daughter wouldn't join, she respected the choice. Besides, Suki added with a grin, who says I won't be immortal? I'll become so incredible that even the gods will ask me to join. Mwahaha. Artemis froze for a moment, unsure if her daughter had just turned into a little mischief maker. Suki. Annabeth smacked her lightly on the back. How many times have I told you not to act like a mischievous supervillain around new people? You're scaring them. Sorry. It's just fun to see their faces. By the way, did you get the picture? Suki asked innocently. Annabeth smirked, holding up a camera. Artemis realized instantly, they had photographic evidence of Suki's antics. Some little blackmail, no doubt. Some part of me knew you'd take after your father, Artemis muttered, rubbing her temples. Naruko's mischievous grin clearly ran in the family. Nonetheless, I would also like to extend the offer to Annabeth and Talia, Artemis continued. No, Annabeth said immediately. Immortality sounded nice, but she agreed with Suki, living forever wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Talia hesitated. Part of her wanted the honor and the power that came with becoming a hunter, but Suki's words struck something deeper. Living forever, while tempting, seemed overwhelming. And she wasn't about to start hating half the world. Talia thought of Naruko, her cheerful, unstoppable uncle, and realized he didn't hate anyone except those who threatened his loved ones. That was the kind of strength and kindness she admired. I'm sorry, Talia finally said. I feel like I have something I need to do, and being a hunter would mean leaving that behind. Do not worry, Artemis said kindly. Losing 3 potential candidates was disappointing, but she understood. So, what's next? Luke asked, uneasy about the idea of Artemis taking his friends. Artemis gestured toward the tent's flap. We should go outside and see what the girls have done to your father. The group followed, and what they found was unusual. Naruko had tied up several hunters with playful precision. But instead of anger, she laughed heartily, holding a sword that twinkled mischievously in the sunlight. Each hunter had notes stuck to them, listing little skills they needed to practice. Zoe, one of the oldest hunters, scowled. I thought I had this mastered. Naruko only laughed. Everyone has room to grow. And besides, she said, flashing her clever grin, practice is more fun with a little chaos. Even Artemis couldn't help but smile at the sight. Naruko had a way of turning even a serious lesson into a game. All right, Artemis said, shaking her head but smiling, let's see what lessons we can all learn today. And so, under the warm sun, the hunters and Naruko began a day of training, laughter, and discovery, knowing that even the wildest, most mischievous moments could teach something wonderful about courage, family, and fun. Oh, you all are done? Excellent. What happened? Naruko asked, noticing the new arrivals. It was a bit disappointing, though, she hadn't had this much fun in a long time. Yes, our chat has finished. What exactly happened while we were gone? Artemis asked, pointing at her hunters. She expected something, but not what she was seeing. They were practically gift-trapped for her. We just played a bit of hide and seek. Isn't that right, girls? Naruko grinned at them, causing them to snort unladylike and mutter under their breath. Artemis rubbed her temples. I don't want to know, she said. Naruko just smiled at her. So? What now, Mom? Suki asked a bit hesitantly. She wasn't used to saying the word mom. Artemis felt a small warmth in her chest at hearing it and could understand Suki's hesitation. It was progress at least. Well, since you didn't join us, the other place you can go is Camp Half-Blood. It's a safe place for demigods. It's protected, Artemis said. Wait, how exactly do demigods wind up there? Do we just feel drawn to it, or does someone find us? Annabeth asked. Indeed, There are satyrs in every school who help kids with ADHD or dyslexia. Just find a satyr, and they will guide you to the camp, Artemis explained. Why can't you come with us? Naruko asked. We're busy. Traveling across the country isn't easy, you know. Some monsters attack cities, and some are strong enough to destroy towns if left unchecked, Artemis replied. Point taken. Good luck with everything, Naruko said with a smile. Naruko and her group began gathering their belongings, taking celestial bronze weapons offered by the hunters, courtesy of Artemis. Talia had her spear and shield, Luke had his sword, Annabeth had daggers, and Suki had a bow and arrows, plus a short dagger at her side. She practiced a little, managing to aim roughly in the right direction. Naruko promised to give her a few more pointers later. Artemis and her hunters gathered to say goodbye to Tsuki, Annabeth, and Talia. They offered polite smiles, though they were a little annoyed that Tsuki had refused to join. Zoe looked a bit bitter, but Artemis said nothing. Thanks for all the help, Arte, Naruko said, grinning. She got a playful tap on the back of her head. No nicknames, Artemis replied firmly. TCH, such a killjoy. What about Moon Girl? No. Hunter Woman? No way. Archer Maniac? Now you're insulting me. What about Tsuki's mother? That's fine, Artemis said, looking away. Naruko grinned. She could tell Artemis was embarrassed. Who would have guessed the great hunter could be a little tsundere? Swiftly, she gave Artemis a quick peck on the cheek and darted off in the opposite direction. Until next time, Okaa-san, Naruko called, emphasizing the last word. Artemis froze for a moment before returning to her tent and emerging with a bow and arrows. Oh, Oto-san, come back. I have a little present for you, she said sweetly. The hunter shivered slightly. Artemis sprinted after Naruko. Everyone else stayed quiet until Luke finally spoke. You don't think that's their way of flirting with each other, do you? No one answered. Tsuki, however, was grinning. Just before her mother disappeared into her tent to retrieve her present, she noticed a soft blush spread across Artemis's cheeks, and a small, almost hidden smile. Her parents might not have been perfect or in a traditional kind of love, but they shared something special. Duty kept her mother busy, and her father always tried to keep things cheerful. Their relationship was unusual, but somehow it worked. Her mother needed to relax, she was far too stiff for her liking. Well, better make sure mom doesn't chase after dad too much. Bye, everyone, Tsuki waved at the hunters and her sisters. That was still a little strange to say, but it felt right. Annabeth caught up with her, and together with Talia and Luke, they chased after Naruko. Tsuki might have enjoyed being with her mother, but leaving her father and sister wasn't an option. Her sister was always with her, and maybe someday they would separate, but for now, she wanted to stay together. Besides, she had a feeling that going with her dad would be far more fun. This marks the end of this chapter, but the journey is far from over. The threads we've begun to weave are only the beginning of a much larger story, one full of twists, challenges, and revelations yet to come. What lies ahead will test limits, ignite passions, and reveal truths that have long been hidden. Stay vigilant, for the next part promises to take everything we know, and everything we think we know, to a whole new level. Until then, remember that every ending is merely the seed of a new beginning. Regards. Anime Octopus.